now, people on both sides of the abortion argument back at the U.S. Supreme Court and on the streets in cities all around the country. 13 states have trigger bans in place to outlaw abortions following the high court's landmark ruling. In Kentucky, South Dakota, and Louisiana, those bans are in effect right now. Women in those states are now coping with the impact of that ruling.
I get pregnant in a situation that is unsustainable and I can't keep the baby, but I also have no recourse to get an abortion. That's my biggest fear.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Esteban. Glad you're with us. And on the steps of our state's capitol today, also crowds. At one point, Governor Jay Inslee was there and vowed to protect a woman's right to an abortion, including those who live here and those who come from out of state. KOMO's Suzanne Fawn explains the specific help, including calls for protection from prosecution. Suzanne?
Those here at the state capitol today want to make sure that women continue to have access to abortion care. And those people coming from out of state get the help they need. Governor Jay Inslee and state leaders stood firm on this Saturday, committed to making sure that Washington state remains a safe place for women who need abortion care. The governor pledged to set aside $1 million in emergency funding to support abortion providers and to help people coming to Washington from other states for services. He's also pushing for a state constitutional amendment to protect women in the Evergreen State. And starting Monday, the governor is issuing an executive order to Washington State Patrol not to cooperate in investigations of other states that violate the Roe versus Wade decision. The governor also talked about the alliance started involving the governors of 3 states, Washington, Oregon, and California.
We want them to know there's a wall in the West Coast protecting the women of the West Coast and the citizens that come from these other states.
This Saturday afternoon, there was also a silent demonstration on the Capitol steps. About a dozen people who oppose abortion showed up around an hour after the abortion rights supporters finished. Those here at the state capitol say they want to protect providers and patients from civil and criminal prosecution. They also want to protect the medical records of people coming to Washington from out of state for abortion services. At the state capitol, Suzanne Fawn, KOMO News.
Well, how about this? Thousands getting their pride on today. Here's some new video from the Pride Parade in Seattle. The all-day event started early this morning. To give you an idea of what a big draw this year's event is, take a look at the celebration. Our vantage points are from Air 4 and, of course, from the ground. The parade always delivers on big and colorful. It began at 4th and Pike and then ended at 2nd Avenue and Denny Way today. The event was themed Family Reunion since it was the first in-person Pride Parade in Seattle since 2019 after the pandemic shut things down the last 2 years. The message from those marching, it's good to be back.
It's awesome to see everyone, just the energy in general, because I think we were really on like the positivity has been great. And I always say that when you come to these events, no matter how you feel about people, it's all about love.
In South Tacoma, less than 24 hours after a mass shooting at a rave, we're now tracking a deadly shooting inside a home off of East 52nd Street, just east of Sheridan Elementary School. Let's get right back out to KOMO's Hannah Knowles live in Tacoma with the very latest. Hannah.
More than a dozen gunshot victims for police in Tacoma within the last 24 hours. The most recent happening here. Right now, we are on the corner of East 52nd Street and East I Street. We know one person is dead, and there is one suspect in police custody at this time being booked on 2 counts of first-degree assault. According to Tacoma police, the owner of the home, a 38-year-old man, was found unresponsive in the backyard with gunshot wounds when police arrived. He was then pronounced dead by officers late last night. His wife, a 35-year-old female, also found at the house by police and is recovering in the hospital with non-life-threatening gunshot wounds. Police say a 34-year-old man and a 28-year-old man also were shot and are recovering in the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. And as for the suspect, Tacoma PIO Wendy Hardo says a 32-year-old man is now in police custody. He was not at the house when officers arrived.
At this time, we do not believe there is any danger to the community. All 5 people involved knew each other. We do not know what started this.
Now, we do know this is the 23rd homicide of the year with 2 officer-involved shootings for Tacoma's police. And again, still a very active scene. Anyone with information who might know something about what happened here is asked to call Crime Stoppers. That's 1-800-222-TIPS. I'll send it back to the studio.
And Hannah, there's a whole lot of people involved here. Was anyone else at home at the time?
Police tell me there were 3 children and another female at the home at the time of the shooting. However, thankfully, they say they were not injured. We'll continue to bring you more information as we learn more. Reporting live in Tacoma, Hannah Knowles, KOMO News.
As you heard Hannah mention, this comes less than 24 hours after a mass shooting at a rave in South Tacoma. That dance party at a venue at 54th and South Tacoma was billed as having enhanced security, but police say some type of argument spilled into an alleyway where someone or several people opened fire. They're still trying to pin all that down. The 8 people hurt are expected to be okay, but so far, no one has been arrested in this case.
My daughter deserves to rest in peace. She was a beautiful, bright 10-year-old little girl. She was a 10-year-old little girl. There was no reason for anybody to take her, other than sick, vile things.
New at 10, a local mother is still waiting for justice 13 years after the murder of her daughter, Lindsey Baum. It was a crime that shocked the entire close-knit community of McCleary.
After a massive response from law enforcement, including the FBI and search teams, to this day, no one knows who killed the 10-year-old girl. And this Operation Crime and Justice report, KOMO's Tammy Mutasa is live with a message from Lindsey's mother and possible new leads that investigators are following. Tammy?
Eric, 13 years with no answers is beyond painful. Lindsey's mom told me what hurts her the most is that her daughter's future was stolen and that a child killer is still out there. For 13 agonizing years, the kidnapping and murder of Lindsey Baum has been weighing heavy on her mom's heart. Melissa carries what's left of her 10-year-old girl, ashes in a necklace.
I want to know where the rest of my daughter is. Priority number 1, all I got back of her was a piece of her skull. And this is it, right here. This is my daughter.
Sunday marks the worst day of the mom's life. On June 26, 2009, Lindsey was snatched from the streets of McCleary. She was walking back home from her friend's house a few blocks away, but she never made it back. Her pictures forever frozen in time.
I rarely stop and look directly at them because that's still hard. It's looking at her face. That's what gets me.
8 years later, a missing child investigation became a murder mystery. Hunters found a small piece of Lindsey's remains deep in the woods outside Ellensburg in Kittitas County. The rest of her body hasn't been found.
My daughter deserves to rest in peace. She was a beautiful, bright 10-year-old little girl. She was a 10-year-old little girl. There was no reason for anybody to take her, other than sick, vile things.
Since then, detectives have combed through the woods, gone through thousands of tips, flyers, and pages of work. Chief of Investigations Darren Wallace says the case has kept him up at night.
It's definitely a monster. We don't know what happened to her, but we know that she ended up deceased. Anybody who would do that to a 10-year-old girl is beyond what you and I can comprehend.
Deputies say there are several persons of interest, including Paul Beaker. The 51-year-old was recently convicted of abducting and raping a 17-year-old girl in McCleary 6 years before Lindsey vanished. Detectives say it's rare to have eerie similarities in both cases in the same tiny town.
How many people of that mindset live in these communities? I wouldn't think, common sense, not very many. So he's definitely a person of interest.
Now Grace Harper has fresh eyes on the case with 4 new detectives. They're working hand in hand with the FBI, the Attorney General's office, and now Kittitas County, too. Do you think this case can be solved?
I do think it's solvable, absolutely. My gut is it's going to just, someone knows something, and someone feeling comfortable enough to come forward and say, this is what I know.
Just as a little remembrance spot for Lindsey.
13 years later, Lindsey's mom keeps her daughter's spirit alive. She's relentless and still has hope.
If I don't do it, who's going to get justice for Lindsey? Who's going to make her 10 years on this earth count for something? I'm literally the only one she has.
Hi, everyone. I'm Preston Phillips from KOMO News. Thanks for checking out the KOMO YouTube channel. You can see more of our videos right here by clicking on the video links for more news from the Seattle area and Western Washington. Oh, and don't forget to click the subscribe button below so you don't miss our YouTube updates.